Hello and welcome back to Java Programming. In this video, I want to talk about getting help, and this is getting programming help. And it applies certainly to the educational environment that we're in, but it also applies very much to the real world. We're practicing building those problem-solving skills here, and so some of this is going to be about, helping yourself, and some of this is going to be about when you finally are really stuck and you need to reach out, what is the best way to do that? There's a really great article out here on Coding Killed the Cat about asking for programming help, and it kind of provides some really nice guidelines. Number one, try something first. As soon as you see that error message, don't just jump out on Slack and throw the error message out there and say, hey, this isn't working. I occasionally will get emails from students say, hey, my program's not working, can you take a look at it? And they're not sharing any background with me, so as far as I know, did you try anything at all? What have you tried, and where exactly is the error message? I might get a whole bunch of code in email and not have any idea of really where the problem is. So think about when you're asking, whether it's somebody at work or whether you're asking out on Slack in this course, provide as much information as you can. And in doing that, the first things that you should do are try some things. So try to help yourself. Don't be afraid to break stuff. If you're pushing to get on a regular basis, you can always get back to your previous versions. So you're not going to break anything by just trying something. Next is narrow down the problem, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But you really want to get down to the line of code or the couple lines of code that you think are causing the problem. And then when asking for help, be sure to provide enough detail. So that was kind of when I was talking about this email that says, hey, my code's not working, can you help? Well, I need more info than that. Anybody will in order to help you. So take a little bit of time and read through this article and really take that to heart. And then I'm going to come back here and just talk through a couple of tips that I've pulled together as well. So under the try something heading, that was in that article, I wanted to provide a little bit more detail here in terms of what should you try. Well, think carefully about what that error message is telling you. Sometimes I think some of us see error messages and get a little bit scared, like, oh, it's broken, I don't know what to do. Read the error message. And sometimes the Java error messages are not that great, but very often they are, and they are telling you what that problem is. Things like cannot find symbol. Well, it's not finding that variable or that method. Why isn't it finding it? Is there a typo in there? Do you have an import statement? That kind of stuff. And the next thing that you want to think about is what line in your code is causing the error. So compiler messages or runtime messages, error messages from Java have line numbers in them. So that's going to help you kind of zero in on where the problem is. Maybe it's not an error message. Maybe your code just isn't doing what you expect it to be doing and you're not getting output. Add some system.print lines in there and try to find where exactly, how far through your code are you getting? Is it just stopping somewhere? You need to determine that and troubleshoot that much, and we can all do that with system.out.print lines really easily. Think about if it was working before. So if your code was working and you've changed something, well, what changed? And that might seem obvious, but sometimes we forget about that and maybe forget about the changes that we've made. Again, if you are making regular commits and pushes to GitHub, it's easy to go back and take a look and kind of compare the 2 versions or 3 versions or however many you're working with. So this is just another reminder to make sure that you're adding, committing, and pushing very frequently. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect. Do it often so you've kind of got that history that you can use to troubleshoot. Next thing that I recommend is think about, well, have I done this somewhere else? So if you're having trouble in the project, well, you probably did something really similar in the labs. So make a good comparison between that working example and the one that's not working. What about a demo? I've demoed most of the concepts that you'll be running into. So is there a working demo that you can compare to? Can you bring that working demo down and get it working? Can you kind of isolate the thing that you're trying to do, get it working in isolation, and then incorporate it back into a bigger lab or project? And then finally, was there sample code in the course materials? Like, do you have the right syntax and that type of thing? So you've kind of gone through all of that and you've narrowed down where the problem is, but you still don't know how to solve it. The next thing is to search for help. So we're still not ready to ask for help. We want to see what's out there already. My recommendation is before you go to Google, check Slack, because it's very likely that somebody else has run into the issue before. And I'm going to be really encouraging you guys to put your questions and your solutions out in Slack to help each other. So even if you run into a problem that you think somebody else might run into that you've already solved, go ahead and throw that out there. Say, hey, here's a tip. I ran into this problem. I kind of fought against it, but here was what the solution was. So don't be afraid to share what you've run into as well. So check Slack. Next would be Google. And when you're searching either of those, or maybe more so with Google, be specific-ish. So when I say specific-ish, I want to take a look at, I just generated kind of a silly error message here by commenting out some lines of code, but here's a compiler message. And so let's suppose that I can't figure this out. I just don't understand what this is telling me, other than that I know on buffered reader demo line 36, there's a try without a catch. Now, bear with me because it's obvious what the problem is, right? But let's just suppose I'm new to this. This doesn't make sense to me. What am I going to search on Google? I am not going to grab this entire message and search for that, because this stuff is specific to me and my machine and my development environment. So it doesn't make any sense to include stuff like this in my search. It doesn't even make sense to include the class name, right? Buffered reader demo. Well, yeah, the problem happens to be in there, but that's way too specific. The line number is too specific. What might make a good search would be this. And then I might combine some other things with that. Sometimes what I see students do is they paste in an error message into Google and they end up in Stack Overflow with what sounds like it might be a similar problem, but as they start digging into it, it's not the same. So there are a few things that you can add into your search to try to help narrow that down. With this, I would add in Java. I would maybe include Java 8 or JDK 8 as part of my search so that I'm sure I'm looking at more current stuff than older stuff. So start more specific, and then if you're not finding answers, then maybe work a little bit more broadly. So let's suppose that we're still stuck, can't find anything out in Slack, haven't found anything out in Google. The next thing, ask for help. You're to that point where, okay, I cannot find anything that's helping me or making sense. When you ask for help, you want to share as much information again as you can. So you want to get specific. Share what you expected to happen. So sometimes I have students come and ask for help, and our IT guides share the same feedback that, sometimes I don't think the student knows what's supposed to happen. So you need to understand what you're working on and what should happen before you can kind of make that stuff happen and before you can ask for help. So make sure you're understanding what's going on. And if you're not, that's kind of a different question or a different kind of help. Like, I don't understand the lab at all. Come to me and let's talk about that. And then what did happen? What was the error message? Don't just say it's not working, it's not compiling. What was the compiler message? What was the error message? What's the behavior that you are observing? And then what have you tried so far? I've narrowed it down to line 36. This is, I'm getting to that line, but then nothing's happening after that. I inspected the variable. The value is null. I'm not sure why. That kind of stuff is super helpful as your classmates are trying to help you, or as I'm trying to help you, or as an IT guide is trying to help you. So the more information you can provide to show that you've helped yourself already makes it much, much easier for somebody else to jump in and offer help as well. That said, I encourage you guys also to help others. So I really want to see us kind of building that community in the classroom, helping each other, and also helping out on Slack. So if you see somebody struggling in class, and jump in and help. Same thing on Slack. If you see a message out there and you think you know the answer, jump in there and help out in a thread. And I'll keep an eye on things too. If I see things might not be going quite the right direction, I'll jump in there. Those are also the kinds of things that employers ask instructors about when they are doing reference checks. They want to know what kind of teammates you guys are, what kind of behavior there was in the classroom, and do people team well, and those soft skills. And this is one of those things that I can really use in reference checks. So please help each other, and that makes it easy for me to give you a good reference down the road. I can say, yep, this person always was helping out, or not afraid to ask questions when they got stuck, and they were great about providing enough information so others could help them. All right, so I'll get back off my soapbox. Don't be afraid to ask for help, but let's just do it in the right way so that we're all learning as much as we possibly can. All right, we'll see you next time.